This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans, so meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Philly Made podcast where we build community by learning more about our fellow Philly friends in the business world. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's partnership coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Ian Campbell from Run the Day. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Shannon. I'm excited for our conversation.
Thank you. So again, thank you for joining me. Could you please introduce yourself a little bit? I know I just introduced you, but you might do it better. And also just tell us, the audience, anything about you on your journey to this point in your professional career that you think would be important and helpful.
Certainly. My story begins back in 1993, born and raised in the greater Philadelphia area. I grew up in media. After high school, I spent a year in South America. I came back to the States, spent 3 years in Ohio, 1 year in California, going to school, launched my career, spent the beginning of it in San Francisco, working in investment banking. I then came back to Philadelphia in 2017, which I aligned quite nicely with the Eagles Super Bowl run, Go Birds, and where I spent about 5 years working at a great investment firm in Philadelphia. And when COVID came in 2020, I got a nagging feeling that said, "Hey, Ian, like I'd love being active my whole life. Growing up, I would play sports, and go running and work out. And when COVID came and all the world shut down, I got this nagging feeling like, hey, Ian, go do something where you can feel more impactful." And with that, I wound up leaving my old day job with the goal of building technology to really make an impact. And from there, I got partnered up with Tim and the great team at Run the Day, which I can talk more about. But that's kind of the short version on Ian Campbell for your audience and why they should continue listening to this episode.
So I appreciate that. So I would really like to know kind of how you got involved in doing this work specifically. I know that you mentioned that you were really into exercise, but what made you want to set up these kind of formats for other people doing that kind of thing?
Yep. When COVID came and kind of the world shut down, I thought it was really important that people have the opportunity to come together and to exercise. I think two of the most important things that humans do are being part of a community and getting active. Like, there's a lot of research out there. I won't go into it. There's lots of research about how humans are social creatures and how being a part of something, having social connections is really good for all types of health. And I think exercise has been widely considered by many as the best way to live a long and healthy life. It's the most potent longevity drug, as they say. So I think having the ability to do both of these things at once and create an impact, it is something that was a big motivation for me.
That's wonderful. I really like hearing how, what inspires someone is able to inspire others, because I think that that's just like a really wonderful thing to hear, especially in different business spaces. It's not always the case where people are as passionate about the mission behind their work, or I think that some people just you know get involved in a business just because they're good at something, and not just because it's something that really drives them, and how they think about life, and their philosophies on everything. So it's really nice to hear that that's something that you're involved in. So how does Run the Day, I guess, in your perspective, foster a sense of community among race organizers and also participants and volunteers beyond just like the management tools that you guys have?
Great question. And there's a lot going on with Run the Day. So let's take a step back and time travel back to 2003 when my partner Tim, a Run the Day founder, volunteered at his daughter's school. He was tasked with putting on a race, which was fantastic. It even turned into the school's biggest fundraiser of the year. But Tim came away thinking, like, geez, for such an awesome event, that was damn complicated, especially since I have another full-time job. So he cobbled up equipment, wrote software, and Run the Day was born. Fast forward 20 years, we've supported over 10,000 community events. And over those years, we've stayed entirely focused on community races with less than 5,000 runners. And the reason why is that we can help these event organizers streamline their events while also, really feeling the community element. So, bringing volunteers in, experiencing the runners, doing all of that together. And so you asked, how Run the Day works. Since Tim volunteered at his daughter's school back in 2003, we've really been focused on making it easier for these community events to happen. And we believe that's important for several reasons. But the way that we do it is through a unique combination of technology and with people. And so we have a technology platform that helps runners register for races. It also has a fundraising component, which is really great for charities that help them raise money for awesome causes. And then we also have teams of race timers who show up on race day as the boots on the ground. And we really think of ourselves as the partner to these organizations who are putting on events by empowering them with the technology, as well as the human component of having people to call and to text and to be there with them as the races are happening.
I think that's wonderful. Is there anything that is part of this technological aspect that are kind of new innovations that you're excited about, maybe for the future?
There's lots that I'm excited about, so I'll do my best to restrain my excitement and maybe mention a few of them. And maybe one thing that's happened in the past few years I'll touch on is, previously at races, everyone would have a label with their name on their bib. And this is, it might be boring to a lot of folks listening out there, but it was a lot of time that went into, printing those labels, applying those labels to bibs. When you would show up to the race, there'd be this big board with everybody like alphabetically organized, and volunteers would need to dig through stacks of bibs to find the person's name. What we did with the mobile app, now, all of the participants go, right into a mobile app. And when they come up to pick up their bib, I'm a volunteer. It's actually so easy. We even had an 83-year-old volunteer using it, which we're quite proud of. But a volunteer types in somebody's name, assigns the bib number to that individual's name, and that way they don't need to dig through stacks of alphabetical bibs. Behind the scenes, labels don't need to be printed out. And we've really seen it cut down on event prep work and streamline race day. And obviously Ian's saying this, but we hear this from our customers all the time. Hey, that new app is really helpful. And we appreciate it.
That's really awesome, because I think that definitely helps people keep using the product, only because I'm sure that it must be frustrating for people to go through all of that and like everything is really helpful, but then they get down to that one aspect and it's like, oh God, I wish there was something that could help this. So it's nice that you're constantly adjusting to new things that you see that are issues, or maybe that you didn't set out to do in the first place when creating the product. So I really like that.
Yep. It's a great point, Shannon. And one of the things that used to bug me is, hey, like I can buy $900 Sixers tickets in 2 seconds with 2 clicks on my phone. Why, if I'm registering for a local turkey trot, why doesn't that take 2 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really what we're striving to do, is bringing all of the modern technology that exists in the world, and allowing communities to use it in a very cost-effective way that not only simplifies the logistics, it also enhances and elevates the experience for the running community.
Yeah, no, I really value that, because I think that there's so many services that ease of use isn't at the top of their mind. And I think that is something that really deters people from using a service or a product, because of the process that goes to it. If it takes so long, or it's difficult or any of the sorts, I think that more people it'll be less likely that someone will use it in the future. So I like that that's at the top of your mind. I don't think that other people think of that or value that as important as they should, because it's more of a consumer-centered approach. And I think that many people have a difficult time looking at that because they've created something that they really love, and they're not constantly adjusting to making it easier for the people that they're providing it for to be able to use easily.
If you can't get into the concert, you can't listen to the music, it's the same thing with anything, right? I tend to agree with you on the onboarding. I was at a bunch of races last weekend, and we were, I was working with, runners to download our app. And, when you watch people use the software, what you tend to notice is that, the issues that they run into are, when they're using it for the first time, are different issues than you're used to, because you're so in the weeds and you're using it every day. It's very simple things like, should I log in with my phone or with my email? And simple things that, you see people get indecision, and then they get distracted by their kids. And then, the next thing that they haven't even gotten into, the meat of the platform.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very similar to, I think, a website, or at least I've talked to people about a similar phenomenon where people will go to a website and they either don't immediately understand what that service does, or what the product is, or whatever they may be advertising. And then when they go to look into more, it's just not the easiest process, and they immediately just don't even continue to navigate that website. They just click off and go to something that's easier or like a competitor or whatever it may be. And I think that any tools that are something that is going to give someone more information or be able to use a service, that needs to be at the top of their minds. But I think that especially where website's concerned, which is where I have more of a experience with, I guess, is that, you look at something so much that it's kind of hard for you to see these other things because unless you're getting direct feedback from consumers, you're not really, it's harder to see the problems in something that you devote so much time to, especially since there's like a level of pride too that goes into that of like working so hard on something and knowing that there's still things that you can do better.
That's right. And there's probably some fancy word for it, but it's like optimist bias, right? There's things that I catch myself doing. I use the product that I subconsciously don't even think about, as it's like I find a workaround to make it work. But the average person isn't going to deal with that workaround. They're going to move on to the next thing in life.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when it's easier to also use something that you use constantly or interact with constantly. Whereas like someone who's new to the service may not use it as easily, and you can really recognize that sometimes. Well, switching gears a little bit. So, okay. The event management space generally is very competitive from my understanding. How does Run the Day give unique value to not only race organizers, but the participants that sets it aside from maybe other platforms like it?
That's a really good question. And it's funny how events have become a buzzword in recent years. What's funny it is going back to the early 2000s, and you look at the endurance event registration market, Div was really the only player in town. They started in the late 90s in Texas. They've since been acquired several times, most recently by Global Payments. But they, to answer your question, Shannon, about how Run the Day is different, is we focus entirely on running races with between 100 and 5,000 participants. And what that allows us to do is act much more like a race partner, and build the tools that race directors and race organizers need, whether that's, sending emails and SMS text messages for marketing purposes and for, race coordination purposes. We have a volunteer sign up kind of built into the platform. And so there's all of these little things that, when you're putting on a 5K, especially when it's not your full-time job, and you need it to be simple, you need it to be quick. We really strive to kind of automate a lot of those processes with the platform and allow these race directors to avoid super complicated spreadsheets, manually managing data, manually going through different shirt sizes to send off to the t-shirt vendor. And so there's nothing that is rocket science that we do. But there are a million little things that go into putting on a successful race. And we believe by focusing entirely, on building software to support these running races, we can make it 999,000 something and make it a little bit easier.
I think that's a really important value to have. Again, I think ease of using a service is something that is like, I can't emphasize it enough because I think me as a consumer, I get aggravated very easily. So I I want to be able to use something as easy as it can be made. And I think that it's nice to hear that you're constantly working on that and making sure that that is always a priority. You guys also have an interest in sustainable events, right?
Correct. We're we believe I bet against paper 6 days a week and twice on Sunday. I use paper. I have a notebook, but I bet against it all the time. And I think one of the benefits of that, being sustainable, is great for a lot of reasons. But it's a nice marriage for us with reducing paper and being sustainable.
So, in what ways are you able to help reduce waste or environmental impact during these kind of events or beforehand, I suppose?
Yep. We by being at a race with technology, there's fewer kind of bids that need to get printed. And there's also less paper that's needed for the results. Might not be this might be a good question to cut because I'm not doing a good job.
Oh, you're doing fine.
But I think the sustainable impact that we have is just reducing paper. And I think that tends to be really it.
Yeah, I mean, that's still what it impacts. I definitely believe that, I don't know, there's so many ways in which we can help reduce the impact that we have on the environment. And I think that just because it seems like minor, just reducing paper, I think that's still an impact, especially since events like that do require a vast amount of paper production, or maybe they don't require it. But I think that a lot of people only see it in that one scope because it's been done a certain way for so long. So it's nice to be able to push those boundaries of what people believe can be done in those specific areas and reduce their paper consumption. So I don't think that that's little. I think that that's still really important.
It's true. I mean, everything that was done on paper can now be done in our mobile app for race day. And same thing with registration. It used to be done on paper forms. Now it's done electronically through QR codes. Result, the same thing. It used to be a bunch of printouts, and we're moving into an era where it's all done digitally. So that would be a better answer to your question.
That's incredible. I think that that's a really great way to reduce that. And I don't think that, especially community-based events, I think that they tend to be more paper-based because a lot of people are physically outreaching or, handing out flyers or different things like that. So it's really cool to be able to, have that service to be able to, do all of these things like filling out forms and stuff like that on your phone instead. I think most people honestly probably prefer that anyway at this point because of how much technology has advanced. So, it's nice to be able to, go with that.
We certainly believe that to be the case. And we see a lot of people very happy that they can show up to a 5K and pay with Apple Pay.
It's awesome.
Write a check or pay with cash.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So what is moving more towards like a marketing side, I guess, of this conversation. What is your strategy for expanding Run the Day's reach? Not only like regionally, but also in terms of maybe types of events that you support?
Yep. Great question. We work with races nationwide today. So races from California to Florida to Michigan to Vermont all use Run the Day to help manage their race. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, oh, like, I don't know, like running races, like that doesn't seem like that big of a market. It turns out, almost every school nonprofit holds a 5K as a fundraiser. And if you look at, the numbers in the running industry, run groups are having a moment. Running is having a moment. The Chicago Marathon just had a record number of 160,000 applicants. And so what we believe, there's a huge market opportunity with, people who run in these events. And we believe it's only going to grow as the future progresses. And so to answer your question, and it may not be the answer that you wanted, but we're entirely focused on supporting these running events, in the USA Today, and then globally shortly thereafter. I mean, and by rough estimates, there's several 100,000 running events in the US every year. And so we can grow both by, working with more of these events. And we can also grow, by growing the events, because the way, our economics for the business work is that we're aligned with the event. So as the race grows, Run the Day also grows. And so we really like that because it can allow us to be a true partner with a lot of the races that we work with.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I don't think that there's, especially since COVID, I think this is such a wonderful thing to have. I think that people are wanting to do more community-based things and be more active. And I think that this will only grow more and more, especially just on the activity side as well. I think that these will continue to be, there'll be more and more runs and there will be more and more events, because I think that anytime there's this lull in activity or community in a space, I think that there's this boom afterwards. And I think it's only getting more and more after the events of COVID. I think people are kind of starved for activity, even this late afterwards. So it's really nice to see. And I'm happy that, this business is supporting that, because, I think that this is the best way, one of the best ways for people to be able to, gain a sense of community and also be healthy in the process, which is really wonderful.
You said it perfectly, Shannon. It's a great opportunity to get involved in your community. And it's a great opportunity to have motivation to move your body, get active, which has a lot more benefits than I think we think. Even someone like me who goes running all the time, I think I understate benefits that I get from living an active, healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, no, there's so many things. It's not just, like good for your body, but it's good for your mind. There's so much, like, I use exercise just to be less stressed. So it's just such a stress reliever. There's nothing better than it. So it's just a really lovely thing to have. And I think for specifically, I know that it's not just Philadelphia that these events happen in, but I think that having community-based events is something that is so critical for Philly. Especially there's so much that needs to be done. And I think community-based or community level support is the best way to go about it here. So it makes me really happy to see more stuff like that. Clearly, the government is not being so as helpful as the community has always been. So to be able to see Philly, thrive in that way is really great. And Speaking of Philly, not to interrupt you, it's time for our Philly questions. Now that we're wrapping up a little bit, are you excited? Are you ready?
Super excited.
All right, these are rapid fire Philly questions. This is not a quiz, so don't worry. There's no right answers unless you say the wrong answer. Anyway, so what's the first word that you think of when you hear Philadelphia?
Tough.
Tough. Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree with that. What celebrity do you think of when you think of Philadelphia?
Rocky.
Yes, a staple. Favorite cheesesteak spot? This one's controversial.
I'll go with a curveball. Woodrow's on South Street.
I will be looking into that. You better be right. Anyway, what's the one small business you frequent the most?
Shout out Philly Runner.
I will also be looking into it. Okay. What is your favorite place for a drink or a meal?
JJ Thai.
JJ Time. All right, I write everything down because I love experiencing more places in Philly. So thank you.
And I would explain them, but I wouldn't do a good job of selling them. So all the places, if you look them up on Google, it's 5 stars and people.
I appreciate it. No worries. No explanation needed, but you're able to provide one, even if you don't think you'll sell it well. And then if you were to change something about Philly, what would it be?
If I were to change one thing about Philly, I would want it to be more innovative. I love the spirit of Philadelphia, but you get in, you walk through an airport in Miami or LA, and they're talking about how AI is changing the world. In Philly, I love the Eagles. You walk through the airport and it's a bunch of just Eagles posters, and I love the Eagles. I think they got a good shot of winning the Super Bowl this year. But I would just hope that Philadelphia can embrace the future and embrace innovation, and really make it into a city that's built for the future.
I really like that. That's definitely a unique answer. So I appreciate the sentiment because I definitely agree with that. I think that sometimes Philly is set in their ways, quote unquote, but I don't always think it's a bad thing. But sometimes I think it's always nice to improve, and I really would love to see this city improve in a lot of ways. But I just really love it regardless.
You and I both.
Yeah, it's a great place. I didn't grow up here, but I've been here for like 6 years, and it's home now. So, what is your favorite neighborhood in Philly? Speaking of home, doesn't have to be your home though. It can just be your favorite place to go.
Sure. Rittenhouse.
Yeah, that's fair. I really love it there. I love exploring Rittenhouse Square, and I used to work there in college. So I really it's very recognizable for me. I can at least navigate it. The longer I am in Philly, I feel like the more lost I get, which is so funny because it's such a small city, but I get lost constantly. Well, that is all the time we have today. We're a little over time, but that means it was just a really good conversation. So I really appreciate you coming on with me today. And I think you answered our rapid fire Philly questions beautifully. And one day you'll be able to see yourself on here soon.
Thanks, Shannon. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you. And thank you for joining me again. And thank you everyone for listening or watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more Philly favorites like this. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.